This happened to me and my best friend Ellen earlier this year, right after the Carnival in Brazil. I've never written anything like this before, but I need to get it off my chest because I genuinely believe we came terrifyingly close to being trafficked. We had been planning our trip to Brazil for months. I'd always wanted to see Rio during the Carnival, and it honestly lived up to the hype. Vibrant, wild, beautiful chaos. We met people from all over the world. It was my first time in South America, and for a while, it felt like a dream. That's when we met Luis. He was Brazilian, but spoke perfect English, said he'd studied in London. He was tall, handsome, funny, in that smooth, confident way. He didn't come off as creepy at all. In fact, he seemed super protective of us. We hung out for 2 days straight, going to street parties and parades with his friends. He paid for our drinks, danced with us, and made us feel safe in a city we didn't know. When he invited us to go with him to São Paulo for some underground rave parties the following weekend, Ellen was instantly into the idea. I was more hesitant. I liked Luis, but I've always had a cautious streak. Still, she was excited, and I didn't want to be the killjoy. He promised it would be fun, and that we could stay at a beach house just outside the city with his friends. I wasn't crazy about the idea of staying at some random guy's house, so I insisted we book a hotel. Ellen didn't see the harm, but she went along with it. Luis looked a little disappointed when we told him, but he didn't argue. When we got to São Paulo, things started to feel different. Luis wasn't as flirty or charming anymore. He seemed distracted, maybe even nervous. Still, we got settled into our hotel and tried to shake it off. That night, Luis and 2 of his friends came to pick us up. From the moment we got into the car, I knew something was off. The energy had completely shifted. No music playing. Luis was quiet. The 2 guys in the front seat didn't speak a word to us. I asked where the party was, and Luis told me we were heading to a pre-party in the city before heading to the beach. But I noticed pretty quickly that we weren't heading toward the coast. We were going deeper into the city, and not the nice part. The buildings got older, dirtier. The streets were narrower. Eventually, we turned into a maze of roads that I later realized were the outskirts of a favela. I asked again where we were going, and Luis didn't even look at me. "We're almost there," he muttered. The car stopped in front of a cracked concrete staircase between 2 buildings. One of the guys opened the door and gestured for us to get out. Luis didn't smile. He just said, "Come on, don't make this harder than it has to be." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a party. Ellen and I were frozen for a moment. I told them I wanted to go back, that we weren't feeling well. One of the other men grabbed Ellen's arm and whispered something in Portuguese I couldn't understand, but the tone said everything. "Just walk," Luis snapped, "and keep your mouth shut. Trust me, it's better that way." We were both crying as we climbed the steps. I remember holding Ellen's hand so tightly that my nails dug into her skin. We passed dark windows, graffiti-covered walls, stray dogs watching us from corners. Then, from one of the buildings ahead, a man stepped out and shouted something at Luis and his friends. He looked furious. Luis shouted back. Suddenly there were more voices, angry, overlapping. And then, gunshots. I don't know who fired first. I didn't wait to find out. In that split second, I pulled Ellen's arm and screamed, "Run!" We ran like animals. Down the stairs, through alleys, past confused pedestrians. I don't remember how many turns we took or how long we ran. I just remember the panic, the sound of blood rushing in my ears, and the feeling that we were being chased. Eventually, We burst out onto a wide avenue. It was bright, full of cars and headlights and normal life again. I collapsed onto the pavement, screaming for help. A police car pulled over, and the officers helped us in. We were shaking and out of breath, but alive. At the station, we filed a report. The officers weren't surprised. One of them told me, very plainly, that young foreign women disappear from the city all the time. That there are people who make a lot of money moving girls through certain areas. He didn't say it directly, but we knew what he meant. Ellen barely spoke for days after. I had nightmares for weeks. We cut our trip short and flew home. I still can't believe how close we came to something unthinkable. I don't know who that man was who intervened, or what those gunshots were really about, but I owe our lives to that chaos. Ellen and I haven't thought about traveling abroad since but even if we do, we are never planning on visiting Brazil again. This happened a couple of years ago when my now ex-boyfriend, Antoine, and I went backpacking through South America. We're both from France, and Antoine had this obsession with the Inca Trail, not the one to Machu Picchu. He wanted the real deal, the less traveled paths, the wild ones. He did a ton of research and planned a hike through the Choqquequirao region, where the Andes highlands slowly melt into the jungle. I didn't know it at the time, but that area is remote, wild, and not always safe. We were about 4 days into the hike, completely off the grid, when we camped near a ridge overlooking the jungle. We thought we were alone. We hadn't seen another soul in 2 days. That night, we set up our tent, cooked a bit of rice, and watched the stars. It felt peaceful. That peace didn't last. In the middle of the night, I woke up to voices, harsh, angry ones. Then I saw flashlights through the fabric of the tent. Before I could say anything, someone yanked the zipper open and pulled us out. There were 5 of them, all men, all with guns. They were shouting in Spanish, fast, aggressive Spanish I couldn't understand. Antoine tried to talk to them, but his Spanish was terrible. I remember him raising his hands, saying, "Turistas, turistas." We didn't know. It didn't matter. They forced us to walk with them. No bags, no shoes, nothing but what we wore. It was dark, the jungle buzzing all around, and we had no idea where we were going. Eventually, we came to this rundown shack hidden in the trees. Inside, it reeked of chemicals and something sickly sweet. There were big blue barrels, plastic sheets, and what looked like coca leaves everywhere. I didn't understand exactly what we'd walked into, but it was clear this wasn't just some rural house. It was a drug lab. They locked us in a small wooden room with a dirt floor. One window, no glass, no bars, just too small to crawl through. We stayed there for 5 days. They barely gave us food. A little rice or stale bread once a day. Dirty water in plastic bottles. They didn't beat us or touch us, but the waiting, the fear, the silence. It was unbearable. We whispered at night, wondering what they'd do to us. Would they keep us, sell us, kill us, and dump our bodies in the jungle? On the 5th day, something changed. One of the men came in with a machete in his belt and told us to ponerse algo, put something on. He tossed us our hiking boots and blindfolds. They tied our hands, blindfolded us, and led us outside. I could hear birds and wind and an engine. Then the truck. We were thrown into the back, and it started moving. That ride felt like it lasted forever. I had no idea which direction we were going or how far we'd gone. Every time the truck slowed down, my heart would pound thinking, this is it. Eventually, it stopped. The back opened, still blindfolded. They shoved us out onto the side of a gravel road. I heard the truck speed away. I sat there frozen until Antoine pulled my blindfold off. We were on some dusty road in the middle of nowhere. He started crying, and I think I did too, but I barely remember it. I was too thirsty, too weak, too scared. We walked for hours. Eventually, a small truck passed by, a local farmer. He took one look at us and helped. He gave us water and drove us to the nearest town. I still remember the look on his face. He knew. We reported everything to the local police. They weren't surprised. The officer told us very matter-of-factly that the high jungle is often used by traffickers. He said we were probably kept alive because killing foreigners brings too much heat. I haven't travelled abroad since. Antoine and I broke up a few months after. I couldn't look at him without reliving those days. I've done business in Argentina for over a decade now. I work in the footwear industry, and many of my suppliers are based there, especially the ones who work with leather. I've gotten used to flying down a few times a year, staying in the same hotel near the center of Buenos Aires, meeting with my regular contacts, then flying back home. It's a routine I've come to enjoy. But on my last trip, something happened that's made me rethink a lot of things. That time, instead of staying at my usual place, I booked a hotel a bit outside the city. One of my main suppliers had invited me to spend the following day at his country house in Ezeiza, a quiet, semi-rural area on the outskirts. The hotel I picked was a tall, elegant-looking building. Old, but renovated. It had 15 floors, and I was given a room on the 11th. Everything about it felt charming. Classic decor, iron elevators, the kind of place that still used actual keys instead of key cards. It even smelled like old wood and lemon polish. I checked in late, ordered a sandwich, and went straight to bed. The next day was one of the best I've had in Argentina. The countryside was peaceful, the wine flowed freely, and the parrilla, the traditional Argentine barbecue, was incredible. I had too much of both, if I'm being honest. When it was time to head back, my supplier offered to call a cab for me. As I told him the name of the hotel, he raised an eyebrow, then let out a little laugh. "You're staying there?" he asked. "You better sleep tight, amigo. That place used to be a children's hospital. Burned down, I think, in the 70s. People say it's haunted." I laughed it off. I've stayed in plenty of old buildings. If anything, I was buzzed and just ready to sleep. I remember texting my wife a good night photo from the window. The moon was out, and I left the curtains half open. That's when things got strange. At some point in the night, I woke up. I couldn't move. At first I thought I was dreaming, but I knew I was awake, fully aware yet paralyzed. I've heard of sleep paralysis, so I tried to stay calm. I told myself it would pass, but then I felt a pressure on my chest, like something heavy had climbed onto me. I tried to breathe deeply, but it felt like my lungs wouldn't expand. The moonlight coming through the window let me see something. There was a figure standing near the foot of my bed. Small, child-sized, but completely dark. Like a silhouette darker than the room itself. Its face was just a blur of shadow. No details, just sunken pits where the eyes should be. I couldn't tell if it was watching me, but I felt its gaze. In its hand was something metallic. At first I couldn't make it out, but then I recognized the shape. It was my Swiss knife, the one I always carry in my travel bag. It was open, the small blade extended. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I honestly thought I was going to die. Then, with everything I had, I forced out a sound. Some half scream, half groan. As soon as I did, the figure blinked out of existence. I don't remember falling back asleep. I only remember waking up again in the morning, drenched in sweat, heart racing. And there, lying on the rug next to the bed, was my Swiss knife, open. I never take it out of my carry-on. I bring it along for utility. It was a gift from my father, and I like to keep it with me just in case. But I never leave it out, and certainly never next to the bed. I spent the rest of the morning in silence. I didn't ask the receptionist anything. I didn't mention it to anyone. I flew home the next evening. I'm not sure what I experienced. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was sleep paralysis with a very real hallucination. But even now, when I think about that heavy feeling on my chest and the cold presence in the room, I feel sick to my stomach. I still travel for work, but ever since that night, I never sleep in the dark while abroad. I always keep a light on, just in case.